folks, welcome back to the Broken Meeple. This is another board game review coming to you from Portsmouth on a somewhat windy day, it has to be said. This is still in the middle of the flood and storm crisis that Britain seems to be afflicted with at the moment, but hopefully you won't pick up the fact that it's blowing cats and dogs out there, so that shouldn't interrupt this review too much. But we're going to take a look at Marvel Legendary. Now this is a deck building game by Upper Deck. It's, again, funny enough, a cooperative game. Gee, I wonder why. And this is where you have a mastermind that is preparing a scheme of some sort. There's varied schemes in the box to either take over the world, capture hostages, rob a bank, unleash the power of the cosmic cube, stuff like that from the comic books. And you are effectively S.H.I.E.L.D. and you are recruiting all the Marvel superheroes to your aid in order to beat the mastermind and the related villains. So what do I think of the game as a whole, and does it work as a cooperative game, and does the theme of the Marvel superhero universe come out in the game? Well, let's find out. Components in this game, well, there's a lot. Not a lot of different components, just a lot of the same component. This is a deck building game, so as you can imagine, this is going to have a lot of cards. Yes, it has a lot of cards, at least 500 or so. There's a huge amount of cardstock in this box. And, I mean, the cardstock itself is fine. The insert is pretty good at separating the cards from each other. The dividers that I used to separate the cards out are a bit, they could be better. They're effectively just got the, I wonder if the logo's in the front. It's basically got the L logo for the Legendary board game, but that's it. There's no other way of distinguishing deck from deck with the dividers, so it would have been nice if they could have put a picture or at least just a tagline on there to say that this is the Hulk, this is Spider-Man, that kind of thing. But it's a minor nitpick, and what I've done is I've actually pimped this game out with some unique dividers that have been made on BoardGameGeek. Search the files section on BoardGameGeek for Marvel Legendary and you'll find a person who has created his own custom dividers that have the symbols, a portrait of the hero, the tagline for it, and it just works so well. Cut them out, laminate them, and get them in this box. Works a treat. But the cards themselves are pretty good. The artwork in this game is very good. I wouldn't say it was outstanding, but they captured the theme of the heroes really well. It is very good artwork, but there is one issue I do have with it. This is solved in the expansions, but in this base game alone, yes, all the different superheroes and operatives and that have different artwork, but the powers that the superheroes can have in this game still have the same artwork. So Spider-Man, for example, might have 5 different cards that relate to Spider-Man, but they all have the same picture. It's a good picture, but it's the same picture. And that's a bit of an annoyance. It would have been nice for them to have varied the artwork a little bit between cards. And like I said, this is something that is improved in the expansions. They have unique artwork in the expansion, so that's just a nitpick for the base game. If you enjoy the base game, you're going to be getting the expansions. It's a no-brainer. But it would have been nice for them to have varied that to an extent. But like I say, they are still good artwork. They're very functional cards, and there is still a fair amount of variation in the cards, because one thing that this game has is a lot of different heroes. I mean, you have got Hulk, Captain America, Nick Fury, Black Widow, Wolverine, Rogue, Cyclops, Iron Man, Thor. There's all sorts of heroes in this base game alone, and that's just the heroes. In terms of the villains, you have got Red Skull, you've got trying to think of main examples in this. Oh god, I've had a bit of a mind blank. Oh yeah, Red Skull, Loki. Trying to think, because I mainly use the expansion heroes. Sorry about it. It is a mind blank. There are a lot of super masterminds in this deck, though. We are talking at least about 5 or 6 masterminds in there. It's just that I've mainly used the expansion ones at the moment. But they have their own varied abilities. All the villains and henchmen have their own varied abilities. But in general, component-wise, I can't fault it too much on the artwork, apart from the fact that the pictures could have been varied. So it's a sort of touch and go for the component side of things. It just would have been nice to have varied artwork, but it still looks good. And I suppose given the price tag for this game, maybe they could have improved on that a little bit. But it's not bad. It's not bad quality. It's just a few nitpicks that you are going to have to deal with. This game is going to have to get right is the theme. It's going to have to make you feel like you are playing these superheroes, fighting this mastermind, and getting the job done whilst still working fine as a mechanical game because of the deck building genre. Now, the deck building genre is a difficult one to get the theme right. You tend to find that it bogs down too much in the mechanics of the game rather than actually getting the theme across. Marvel Legendary actually does a good job of bringing the theme out. All the heroes feel different. And in terms of which heroes work well with each other, that is brought out in this as well. You will get very good combinations. If, for example, you go with S.H.I.E.L.D. and Avengers. I did a game where I had Captain America, Black Widow, and Nick Fury in the same game. Mainly because I was looking at all the hype with the Winter Soldier coming out later this year. And that worked really well. But then, in contrast, you could also have Wolverine, Rogue, and Cyclops. They're free X-Men, they work well. You can create your own little band of superheroes and just do what you like. I mean, you don't have to go with ones from the comics, but you can for, if that's a nostalgic thing for you. But, you could have Spider-Man teaming up with Wolverine, teaming up with the Hulk, teaming up with Hawkeye. It's you can go for whatever team you like and just choose your favourite superheroes. In terms of the villains, do you want to fight Loki this time? Yeah, I fancy going for Loki. Do you fancy Doctor Doom this time round? Go for it. And the rules for creating all the decks just allow you to get the game set up and play with your favourite heroes. And during the game, you'll be web slinging with Spider-Man, you'll be punching things with the Hulk, you'll be healing up with Wolverine. The abilities and the cards are very thematic to the heroes themselves. They make sense. Captain America likes teamwork. The Hulk likes punching things. Rogue likes copying. Wolverine likes healing. Iron Man draws a lot of cards. He has a lot of assets at his disposal. It makes sense. So no problem with that. So even if on the board it just looks like it's a bunch of cards, you can get into this game with just a mild bit of an imagination. You'll be imagining what this would be like if it was made into a film. It's like playing the Avengers movie, pretty much, out of a box. You had the proper Avengers team in that film. Here, just replace the characters with whichever ones you've used, and you have got the same type of experience. So, the theme is brought out very well in Legendary, and I gotta give it a thumbs up for that. The rules themselves it's not too difficult to play, but the rulebook is not fantastic. It could have been worded better, and you will get some ambiguity in places in terms of what there are, but there's not many rules to learn, and FAQs online and that are pretty good at answering your queries if you have any. So the rulebook could have been better, but after a few plays, you will get the hang of this game relatively quickly. The setup time is not too bad. Once you've got the gist of how this game works, the setup time is cut dramatically. But you have to accept for the first couple of games, you're going to be looking at the rulebook and going, right, I need one mastermind, I need one scheme. This means I now need one henchman group, I need villain group there, I need 4 heroes, and you're going to be taking out the decks, you're going to be shuffling them all together, putting them on the board. So the setup time can be a little long to begin with, particularly if you're using a lot of players. But eventually it will become second nature to you, and the rulebook has a good reference at the back for saying, and even the board itself has got turn sequences and the setup differences printed on the boards for quick and easy reference. So it's not too difficult to get your head around those bits, but you are going to have to accept that maybe once or twice you're going to get some slight ambiguity with some of the rules, but just make something up and go with it. You don't have to get bogged down with the rule set as such. And like I say, some of it might just be me. Maybe I found it ambiguous, maybe you won't. But there certainly were a couple of times where I thought, okay, hang on a minute, Is that? Oh, yeah, a few little revelations like that, but just it doesn't spoil the game. It does come out on its own, even with a slightly iffy rule book. But probably you're going to want to just maybe play a couple of solo games and just get the hang of it before you start teaching the players. That would be a good idea. It does do 1 to 5 players. I don't recommend playing this with 5. It just drags the game too long. 4 is not bad, but it does make the game quite challenging. 2 and 3 is a brilliant happy medium. They have the right amount of challenge, and the game speeds through quite well. So 2 and 3 player game particularly, this works brilliantly. I've had the most fun playing this with 3 players. 4 players is fine, but with 3 players I've had the most fun. As a solo game, they have a different variant at the back of the book for how you set the game up, and it just tweaks the challenge a little bit here and there. It's a relatively good solo variant, but if you go online, you can go on BoardGameGeek, and there are people who have created their own solo variants, and they're pretty good as well. And the expansion to this, Dark City, actually brings out an advanced solo variant. So this is a game where if you think you're going to be playing this more times on your own than with a group, it's a perfect choice. There's a lot of replayability in this game for just the sheer amount of heroes that are in here. So it's worth getting even if you think that it's just going to be a solo venture. I think the majority of my games have been on solo venture, and I just love getting it out and testing new combinations. But in the end, how long is it going to last? Well, let me tell you. Replayability. That's its key boost. There are lots of heroes in the base set alone. There is enough masterminds and schemes to keep you going, and you could have so many combinations that this base game will give you the bang for its buck. If you start expanding this with things like Dark City and Fantastic Four, the replayability just shoots through the roof. But I'll get onto those hopefully in a separate review. In terms of it's still fun regardless of which one to use, because you might have, okay, I'm going to use Loki. He's going to blow up the world, and I'll use the Avengers team against him, like in the film. And then next time you might think, okay, I'll use Loki again, but this time he's going to rob a bank and capture hostages. And I'll use, I'll use Wolverine with Spider-Man and Iron Man, see what happens. Completely changes the game. It plays out so differently, mostly because of the schemes. The schemes are one of the best features of this, because you can have a mastermind, and it's still the same abilities with the mastermind, but different masterminds have different games. And the heroes obviously change up the game by what abilities you have in combination you make. But the schemes are where it's at. The scheme represents the objective that the villain is doing in order to beat you at this game. And depending which one you use, it changes the way the game plays dramatically, because it may make villains harder to beat. It may mean that bystanders are all over the shop getting nicked, and if bystanders get stolen away, then you get a lot of negatives for it. It may mean that the mastermind himself is buffed up, meaning that it's harder to beat him directly, so you're going to have to get some harder firepower. They really do a good job of changing how it replays, and in terms of difficulty, it can still be quite a challenge if you use the right scheme or the right mastermind. It can be, sometimes it can be a walkover, but then that's just combinations. Every combination is different. You'll get some combinations that are a good challenge, and then you'll get some combinations that are really hard challenges, but still fun. And if a particular villain combination is too easy or too difficult for you, there are a lot of rules in the back of the rule book to vary how you scale the difficulty, whether it's just saying that you draw more from the villain decks, or that the mastermind is higher health, that kind of thing. So you can tweak this game to your heart's content in order to make it more easy or difficult for you. So replayability is just top notch with this game. If you've bought this game and you like it, you're not going to get bored with it anytime soon. So the verdict on Marvel Legendary. Well, one nitpick I will say is that this is not a cheap game. You are looking somewhere in the £50 bracket to get this game, and you are essentially getting a ton of cards. You're getting a lot of replayability and some good artwork on those cards, even though it does have that issue of not being varied for each superhero, but there's a lot of cards. However, I do think that even though this box is huge, it needs to be in order to hold this many cards. And bear in mind, when you get expansions, you're going to need this box and then some in order to hold them. It's a little expensive on that front, but it's worth maybe trying before you buy on this one, because it is a hefty price tag, and if you, like me, you wanted to sleeve the cards as well, you're going to be spending quite a bit on sleeves. So maybe just try before you buy on that front with the price tag, if that's an off-putting thing for you. If money is no object, then fine. I would say get this game because it is a good, fun time. Especially, I mean, if you like Marvel superheroes, this is in your collection. Full stop. You know, all your Marvel superheroes, the major ones, are represented in the box, and when you get the expansions, it just shoots through the roof, and you end up with a ton of variety, and you just get to reenact your superhero fantasies, if you were, on a regular basis. And once you've played the game a few times, the setup time is reduced considerably, and it's a lot easier to play, even with slightly ambiguous rules. So that's what I would probably say. You might just have a shaky start. I would say try before you buy, and if you have bought it, go for a couple of solo games first, and just make sure you've got your head around the game itself. It's not difficult to learn. It's not like the rule book is written by a 5-year-old or anything. It's just, you may have one or two things that confuse you at first, or you might forget. So I just say go for a couple of solo games first. Try before you buy if you're a little uncertain, but I'm telling you, if you just give this a chance, it will surprise you. It's a lot better than that DC deck builder equivalent, which is effectively, how can we screw up the DC universe anymore? You know, now this is much better than that game, in my opinion. It's a classic in the deck building genre. It works well. It's very thematic. The artwork is good, even though it's a little samey. But you know, it's unique artwork. It's not ripped from a comic strip or anything. You know, they properly did the artwork original for this. And, you know, they haven't messed around with the lore or anything. They look how they should. So it's great in that respect, but, you know, it's a deck building card game, so don't think that you're going to get miniatures or anything like that. You know, it's a deck building game, but it's a deck building game that brings out good theme, and I think that is difficult for deck builders to do. Let's take Dominion, for example. It's a good deck builder game, and it's a good amount of fun, but the theme just makes no sense. You know, you play a village, and you get several more actions. How does that work? You know, makes no sense. But, you know, you play, for example, the Wolverine card in here, and you will do an attack, and you'll be able to heal yourself for damage. Makes sense, because that's how Wolverine works. So, and you don't have to know loads about the lore for each character in this game. You know, you could have no idea how certain heroes work, and it will still play fine. It adds to the experience if you know a bit about Marvel. I will say that. If you're a Marvel fan, then you should be getting this game, because this will be right up your street. If you know nothing about Marvel, or anything about superheroes at all, might be a little bit more of a shaky start for you, but, you know, it is a quality game. So I suppose this is going to appeal more to the fanboys amongst us who like Marvel. But, you know, even though I like Marvel superheroes, even though I can point out, as I've said, the flaws that this game has, you know, you have to just play a couple of solo games to get used to it, and you have to accept that the first couple of times you might just take a little while with setup until it becomes second nature. But it's a great deal of fun. I'm pleased to have it in my collection. I've taken the time to sleeve it up and put all unique dividers in here, so you can really pimp this game out to your heart's content. And you'll have seen how I've pimped this out on my how to play video, or storage solution video if I do one for this game. So all in all, Marvel Legendary, it's a good solid co-op. Just bear those little flaws in mind, but trust me, once you get those at your system, it's worth the purchase price. So that's Marvel Legendary.